Well, the West Australian government are crowing about the world's toughest, or Australia's toughest, gun laws, as though that's an inherently good thing. I'm not convinced, and neither is my next guest. Kate
What
Fantinel,
I'm
aka
wanting people
Lady
to do is
Liberty,
actually
welcome
calm
to the
down
Aussie
and be
Wire.
a bit sober
Good to be back,
and
Topher.
wise, and
Now,
as the
we've
Bible
had you
says,
on
to be
before. We've
cunning
talked about
as
the gun
serpents.
situation. West Australia, in my mind, used to be the land of the free. I used to tell people if West Australia would just hurry up and secede from Australia and become its own country, I would move over there. I've changed my mind on that point, and these gun laws are one of the reasons why. What's this latest reform all about?
Well, Topher, what we've seen happen in Western Australia since it became a one-party state under the Western Australian Labor Party government is a total trampling of civil liberties. We saw it with the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, where they tried to tell farmers what they can and can't do on our properties. And now they have come in with the big gun confiscation, limiting the number of firearms we can own with an arbitrary number of up to 5. And they're also using our views, attitudes, and opinions as part of the fit and proper person test. It's absolutely what's crazy what's happening over here, and it's not the land of the free that it used to be.
Well, that last point is terrifying, but I want to get to the specifics of these reforms in just a moment. First, you mentioned the West Australian Aboriginal and Cultural Heritage laws. They were very quickly abandoned because the pushback, the reaction against those laws was just so vast and so intense that they ultimately just dropped them and walked away from them. Do you think the same thing is possible here with these gun reforms, or does it look like these are going to stick?
I think Western Australians have realised that voting in one party that controls both houses is not good for democracy in the long run. Of course, in 2021, when we had the last state election, that was an election based on keeping the border closed, which we resoundingly voted to do that. Now, fast forward, we're a year out from the next election, and the Labor Party has used that time to rush through legislation to suit their ideology. They are not listening to the people. They have not consulted properly. It's been disingenuous consultation in relation to the Firearms Act and the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act. You also see it with the fishers and the logging industry. They have steamrolled over all these sections of society, and I think you find next year's election will be quite interesting indeed.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's get into some of the specifics of this reform here. These are screenshots taken directly from the West Australian Government website. The headline here is Historic Reform to Deliver Toughest Firearms Laws in the Nation. The very language of this press release, the very language of this headline assumes that that's an inherently good thing. I have to assume, based on this, that West Australia must have had the worst firearms crime in the nation. There must have been a massive problem that they're trying to solve here, Kate.
Well, that's the thing. There is no problem, and the government is being very disingenuous with creating a problem that simply doesn't exist. Most of the gun crime, if not all of the gun crime, is with illegal firearms that the bikies have obtained illegally. Again, there are already laws in place in relation to illegal firearms. What these new laws are doing are punishing law-abiding people who just happen to use firearms for our sport, recreation, for hunting, to help pest control with farmers. There is no gun crime problem in WA, in Australia at all. In fact, gun crime was falling before 96 laws were introduced. We never have had this culture of gun crime in Australia. It's been very rare. So what they are doing is creating a problem out of thin air to push through an ideology to change the laws to suit them.
But according to them, they've done it all in exactly the right ways. This is just a screenshot zoomed in on the same webpage here. I quote, Western Australia is set to become the first jurisdiction in the country to impose a limit on the number of firearms a licensed firearm holder can own. Now, that limit, as you said a moment ago, is 5 for people for recreational shooting and hunting, and it's 10 for people in competitive shooting. My question is, how does this help? As far as I'm aware, I only have 2 hands. How does limiting the number of guns to 5 actually change how many I can use at one time? How does this help gun crime?
Well, it doesn't, and that's the point. We have a genuine reason test in Australia that's applied in every state and territory. You have to prove why you need or want a firearm. Capping people at a limit of 5 erodes the fit and proper person test. It puts a cap on the limit. It's also a deterrent. I feel it's a deterrent so that the next generation of Aussies are deterred from getting involved in shooting, which will see the skills used of hunting and marksmanship. The next generation will not have the same opportunities that you and I have had to learn fit and proper handling of firearms, safe firearms handling, something that I've been raised and I appreciate. It's taught me discipline. I've got a great relationship with my father because of it. And what I fear is this government is trampling over a strong culture and tradition of safe firearms handling in our country.
Now, coming out of the second point here, proposed laws were created through extensive consultation. Now, Kate Fantinel, you have been a gun rights advocate and activist for many years now. You're known as Lady Liberty here in Australia. You've been prominent within the firearms shooting community in West Australia. So I can only imagine they must have been falling all over themselves to consult with you. What was your involvement in the consultation, and how did the consultation go?
Well, you might recall when I ran for the Senate, I ran on a platform of give gun owners a fair go. I went to the police minister's office and offered to debate him on firearms laws. He blocked me on all social media, and as part of the consultation process, none of my emails, phone calls, and my long form submission were even responded to. So I've heard from other firearm groups as well that the consultation has not been in the intent of how it's meant to be. And I've also heard that it's the Western Australian Police who have been ghost writing these laws. It is no longer the politicians and the departments who are formulating laws in WA. It's the police who are meant to be the ones enforcing, not writing the laws.
So if I can summarise here as best as I can tell, we have a non-problem, that being gun crime in West Australia, that's being solved by a non-solution really, because it's not going to take any of the firearms out of the hands of actual criminals and people that are committing the few crimes that do occur with firearms. That is all based on a sham consultation and has been written by the enforcers, not by your legislators. Look, it sounds like democracy is functioning really well in Western Australia.
Bring on 2025 state election. I hope Western Australians use their vote wisely next time. I hope we see the parliament turn on its head, because at the moment they are not representing the people.
Now, Kate, if people wanted to get active about this, is there anyone that they could look to in West Australia in politics, in advocacy, etc.? Is there really anywhere to go, or is this just a bit of a situation where, at least for now, they're going to have to suck it up?
There's people like me out there trying to fight the good fight. I know the sporting shooters organisations are trying to mobilise on the ground and get shooters, because predominantly we've been quite quiet and gun shy on political things. But now's the time. It's no longer to be shy. We need to rise up and say, this is our sport, this is our culture, this is our traditions. Leave us alone and go and do some real police work.
And I would add to that, these are our human rights. Kate Fantinel, as always, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on the Aussie Wire.
Thanks, Topher.